I know, right? And hello, hey, Mr. Admitted, just under the wire. Dang. Oh. Nope, no, anyway, welcome everyone to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing live show number 137. Yes, we're racking up the points. Mr. Robert, how are you, sir? Mr. Robert Cole with Rock Cheetah, and of course, Mr. Edward St. Ange with Flip2. Gentlemen, good morning, good morning.
I'm doing well. Do we have audio for Ed?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
Oh, now
gotcha. Yep.
Okay. It's so rare to not hear Ed talking. I was very disoriented.
What were you doing up at 3 in the morning?
What was I doing up at 3 in the morning?
Yeah, because your email that went out at 3 in the morning.
No, 1:21 my time.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot you're in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in the middle.
Gentlemen, how is everyone today?
Yeah, a little bit of work.
Well,
it's tough. My bracket's busted. So yeah.
Oh, and you were doing so well. At one point, you were like in the upper echelon.
I was in the 100th percentile, and I've now depth, which.
Hey, Stuart.
Hey, guys.
And welcome, Mr. Stuart Butler with Fuel Travel. Dun, 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 dun.
We all need intro music. That would be good. Like wrestlers, some kind of intro.
That would be great.
Oh, wait. I did a really cool one for Ed last week, which disappointed Robert, but I did do a good one for Robert the one before. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the world-renowned, the absolutely acclaimed industry leader when it comes to all things that you want to even think are important in the world of hospitality, Mr. Stuart Butler with Fuel Travel.
Salutations, everybody.
Oh, you got to do a little
only
hair.
edit.
That's funny.
The only edit Stuart would like is the things you think are important in hospitality, comma, or anything else. or life. Yeah.
No, I have to save that one for Mr. Tim because although Stuart is a Padawan of learning of Mr. Tim's, I have a blog for that. Tim still is the undisputed leader of, wait, I have a topic I've already written on.
This is true. He's got a lot of years on me. I'll catch him one day.
He's got a head start.
And not here to defend himself.
Take some jabs at him with this. Mr. Robert, you made some pretty cool topic lists this week, although like I was mentioning earlier, it's kind of like shooting fish in the barrel this week because, there's lots
a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and we will be going...
One was wish fulfillment from Ed. Because Ed wanted to talk about GDPR, so
yeah. Yes. Actually, it's the link you shared for HTNG's documents was pretty good. I actually just added that to our Google Drive for everyone to go and study.
Yeah, I did. I shared that as well today.
HTNG does well. So, now, Lauren, just a quick housekeeping item.
GDPR. One thing is have you guys been looking at all the vendors coming out with like their different stuff on how to understand GDPR?
Yeah, we're guilty of that too. Our podcast that's publishing this week is on everything you need to know about GDPR as well.
So is it really fun that one of the biggest vendors in our space put out a really high quality document this week, like probably the best explanation to their customers on how GDPR affects them and what this vendor's doing for it, but ironically, the vendor was wrong in multiple places on GDPR. And I won't say who it is to not embarrass them, and I won't now share their hotelier's guide to preparing for GDPR because it is full of inaccuracies.
There's a lot of misconceptions, I think, and a lot of shared data between different articles that people have just kind of copied and pasted and has the same mistakes for sure.
So, in the wings. We went back to YouTube for those. We went back to YouTube this week. We're broadcasting on YouTube, so we're back to the ability to adding people that are in the chat room should they want to, rather than the limitations that we had experienced with Facebook on the you have to have actually an invited instructor or moderator link to it. So, Darlene, if you want to, we can send an invite to you if you want to pop on the screen. I was going to mention that Mr. Dan Waxman from Outrigger in Hawaii will be eventually joining us. It is very early for him, so he asked if we could wait for him to kind of get his first cup of coffee or Kona coffee, before he could join us on the sunny shores of Waikiki, which is where he has his hotels all clustered nicely together. But it is beautiful down there. I mean, God.
Well, awesome. They aren't all. He has hotels in in Fiji and other very, very nice places.
That's true. He does actually, to be fair. They are there is, and the Maldives as well.
Well, and they have that one location in Parsippany that just doesn't match. I'm kidding. I mean, how funny would it be though if they just had that random hotel like in the middle of corporate America?
Like they tried to put one foothold into They
have the Waxman Homestead. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed for that. So where out of this Pandora's box of happy topics do we want to grab the first happiness from?
Well, no. Well, I think maybe we should stall and talk about GDPR, or maybe you don't want to talk about. We need a nice topic to stall for Dan. I think because there's some of these that because he's so far from Europe, GDPR shouldn't matter, right, guys?
Yes, the farther away, the safer you are. That is a very good insight. Yes. Australia has no worries about GDPR on this whatsoever.
I believe it's distance based. Yes, it's a distance based.
Yes, it is distance based, and of course, if you're not a business in the EU, you shouldn't even have to worry about it at all. I mean,
yes.
Because it's distance based, all flat earthers have to worry about GDPR.
Oh, that's right. Exactly. I think why don't we discuss the section on flat earth that is in the actual GDPR rules? I think that would be the best.
Oh, that's sad. Anyway, so for those who may not know,
I should leave it to the pros, probably Stuart and Ed, to cover this, because I would say I do not specialize in GDPR.
I wouldn't classify us as pros in any stretch. I mean, my disclaimer is, and by us I mean Fuel. Ed's an expert in everything, but
I sound like an expert.
No, this is yes.
I would say go find an expert. Pay them legally, like a legal expert or some auditor now, because you only have a couple of months, and it's serious.
But even that, I'm going to caution you on that. I think that's actually bad advice, because I think there's a lot of opportunists who have popped up that are trying to make GDPR as complicated as getting like PCI level 1. It's nowhere near. First of all, it's nowhere near that solidified. There's still a ton of gray area that no one understands, and if you go too aggressive, it's not going to help you. And realistically, if you look at really the approach you need to take on GDPR is absolutely take in the stuff they've taken a hard stance on. Like, you have to take that into practice. So segmenting your database and marking your database by people that you've interacted with while they were in the EU. So this is something I don't think a lot of people understand, but you cannot use address as the marker. It's where were they when you interacted with them? And if they were inside the EU when you interacted with someone and you got the conversion, they need to be marked. They are protected under GDPR. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking that's a small percentage, but understand that small percentage can invalidate your entire database.
Correct.
Someone who travels a lot between New York and London, they're problematic for any hotels that see that type of traveler, because they're a person that, even if they're a U.S. citizen, if they happen to interact with you well overseas and possibly in a stopover airport, they count. They're protected under GDPR.
Right. And to be clear, it's if they provide data to you while in the EU, right? So if they just visit your website, probably not. Right. But if they book from on your booking engine while in the EU, or if they provide an email address in a sign-up form, something like that, while in the EU, that's when their data is protected.
Right.
And I'm a European Union citizen, right? But if I book a hotel today from South Carolina, my data is not protected under GDPR because I didn't do it from Europe.
Right.
So that's a key thing. So, marking your database appropriately, and then also understanding that this new creative marking in your database that you had to create to, mark out EU citizens, cannot be used to treat them differently, to offer them different things than you do non-EU citizens. So you cannot use the geography or the knowledge that they were in the EU at all in how you present pricing or packaging or anything like that. That's actually in GDPR as well.
And that's a big problem for a lot of groups that do all of these hotels in Florida who do preferential pricing for groups or for individuals who are staying an extended period of time in Florida, that sort of thing. And I think that's still kind of a gray area. If it's an offer where, it's a long-term stay, is that a different product, or is it because they're from the EU? Is
right. And
interesting.
So
and if it's a combination, how does that work? Right.
Yeah. So these are the areas that you're going to want to look at. So I do agree with Stuart that you do need legal advice on this.
Yeah, especially with vendor contracts, right? That's the big one. I think because most hotels are going to be data controllers, right? Because they're controlling the decisions about what's collected, how it's used, things like that. But almost every technology vendor you're using, so your PMS, your booking engine, your ECRM, anyone that has either collected or processed some kind of personal data on your behalf is a processor, and you are required as the controller to be in charge of the fact that they're doing things correctly. So you need to get the right documentation, the right sign-offs from them to ensure that you're covered under GDPR.
Stuart, how many customers have taken you through that?
Hold on. 0.
I have one. I have one that we just finished the process with. The only one to ask us, and I really think it's only because they have properties in Europe that it even happened.
I feel like the media's getting behind it now. We're talking about it here, and we're going to be talking about it on a podcast later. I feel like we're going to begin in the next couple of weeks. Like, I've started prepping my staff with what we've done to be compliant and making sure they have the right talking points. So all our account managers now understand GDPR, whereas a couple of months ago they probably didn't. Even though the technical team's been working on it behind the scenes for a long time. It's not a conversation we've had to have, but I've got a feeling as we get closer to that May 25th date, which is when these regulations come into effect, people
May
are going to be
24th is when you're going to get a crap ton.
Yeah, probably so. Probably so.
And actually, one thing, I posted the link. Lauren, you'll have to tell me if this goes out anywhere, if it goes out to Facebook or not, by posting it in the...
it goes nowhere.
It goes nowhere? Yes. Okay.
It goes to Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge,
we're back to doing everywhere again, Mr. Ed. We're live 5x5 on Facebook.
I like how when we were everywhere before, we had far less viewership than when we were on.
I know, right? Yeah. We have better viewership on Facebook, but less control. Now that we go everywhere, we have less engagement, but more exposure. I don't know.
Anyone would think that everyone had a Facebook account or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
What the hell's up with that?
Exactly. Well, at least, that was last week. We'll get to that.
They still have their accounts. They're just a little more indignant about the fact that their data was shared. That's it.
Yes.
That's not going to change their behavior.
Yeah. So anyway, I did post in the comments, if anyone can see it, about the everything hoteliers need to know about GDPR, which is a good article, is published on FocusWire, but it was from a gentleman from Alice, right? Yep. So it's that's where I think most of the information is really coming from, are people doing doing these articles. But again, you have good ones and really bad ones, as Ed mentioned. So. I don't know. Maybe I should call out the bad one, but we'll see. Well, no, maybe not. Ed doesn't want to. I'm happy to call out that one.
Oh, you know who I'm talking about?
No, but I'm going to search. I'm going to search it out and find it. I think I don't
think they publicize it. I think it was only to their
database.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
I have to interrupt on one thing. We have to introduce Mr. Tim Peter with Tim Peter Associates. Mr. Tim, did you get a new camera? Because this is like in high def, man. You're like,
well, not just that. He's got a new background.
I mean,
he's in the kitchen.
There's a little bit of work being done in the office today, so I'm in my kitchen actually, because
that's this week and what's cooking with Tim Peter.
Hey, let's check the Yeah, we have a new segment, Tim. What's in? Let's check the fridge.
So when you want to start with a mirepoix, what you do first is you julienne the carrots and the.
Let me demonstrate that for you now.
Wait, I happen to have one that's already been made right here.
Exactly. That's the key.
See, I prefer the Yan Can Cook model of cooking show.
I don't know that one.
That's one of the most influential chefs in the
Walk with Yen. Walk with Yen was fun too. He did that Walk with Yen.
He's the one who inspired most of the modern day cooking channel and Food Network people.
And he was fun. He was fun to watch because he did it in a very interesting way. But anyway, we digress.
Yep. I think we're going to get syndicated on the Food Network next.
I think we should.
After Facebook.
I think we should. I mean, it sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah. Anyway, Mr. Robert, I'm sorry. I interrupted you to make sure we got Tim introduced properly, but please continue.
Oh, no. We were just talking about whether we should call out people who are giving bad information. But
I think we should probably, versus calling out people, maybe call out the bad information that's being provided would probably be more.
That's
useful,
no fun,
I guess.
Not nearly as salacious, but okay.
Yeah, one of the big gray areas that I'm coming across is the encryption thing. There's a lot of different opinions about, how to anonymize the data and to what level. And if you read through the 11 chapters of GDPR, it's really not specific. I mean, it says some things you can do related to encryption, but it doesn't say you have to do any of it. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to risk.
May 26th.
We
will find out on May 26th.
It's going to come down to, your individual risk based on how much data you're collecting and what types of data. And certainly, if you're collecting things like biometric data, stuff like that, I think you're probably more likely to be required to. But it still is not apparently clear in the regulation, from what I've read anyway.
Yeah, it's not.
I agree.
That is an area that they kind of just glazed over. They did the FTC type, here's our guidance.
Right.
Exactly. These are things you should consider, but then it's not going to be enforceable, right? Because it's not explicit. And if you look at the current regulations,
I wouldn't go there.
Would make the difference.
But if you look at the current regulations, that there's some ambiguity in there that has not been enforced. And people are throwing out 4% of worldwide gross revenue or up to 20 million euros. The greater of the two is the penalty. But if you look at the current enforcement, they're not really going after people with big fines. They're kind of babying people through. Here's what you need to do to be compliant. So
here's the interesting thing.
Go ahead, Ed. It's okay.
We've been trying to give this perspective to our clients, which is it's unlikely that your big GDPR problem that you will encounter is going to come from the EU.
Correct.
Who it's more likely to come from is going to be your legal group who's making sure you're in business compliance, or even that I think will be the lesser of chances. It's actually probably going to be your insurance company. That ends up causing the problem for you. And so the problem we're trying to get people to understand is if you don't even do the basics, you're actually running risk that you're going to take what I know a lot of our clients see as one of their more valuable non-tangible assets, which is their marketing database. And you may potentially be in a position where you can't do anything with it because you haven't taken the correct steps. And then all of a sudden you get a letter or a communication from your insurance company asking for you to certify that you have taken the steps to be GDPR compliant. And you as the database manager are going to go, oh, well, okay, how do I do it? Well, if you try to do it after the date, there's no way to do it. You can't reach back because that's against the rules. You can't do anything. So literally you need to try and get your database at least segmented and marked and start getting the correct permissions from people that interact with you in the EU. So that way you don't end up, worst case, let's say you just get it segmented correctly, where you have it correctly marked and stored. So worst case, you may lose a percentage of your database if you at least start that work now. If you wait until after and you wait until either your insurance company or a legal advisor comes at you, you may lose your entire database because you can't go and ask, are you in the EU? Like, you can't do that. So it's worth paying. Well, you can. I mean, if you read some of the laws, I mean, even now going back and doing communication, if you don't want to violate today's laws, you have to do it transactionally to, why you communicated with them in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts, group?
Yeah, I think it's tricky, right? Because again, it's data that was collected while the person was in the EU. So for the vast majority of people in the US, because that's most of my clients that I deal with, again, the vast majority of the data they've collected was not in the EU. So one, do they have a method of identifying that now? Right? Did they collect IP addresses? Did they collect some kind of information at the point so let's have that discussion first to see if we can segment it, because then we're only really dealing with tagging those people that we're unsure about if we're not definitively sure they weren't in the EU. So, I think you can lessen the burden a little bit, but really, if you step back and look at why GDPR is in existence, it's because marketers have basically abused the data they've collected over the years, and this is an overstretch from the government to force us to do stuff we should probably have been doing all the time. So I think the first thing we're telling our clients to do is sit down and map out every data flow you have, like every piece of data you're collecting, it personally identifiable information. So name, address, emails, IPs, whatever it is, physical address. Map it out. Where are you collecting that? How are you collecting it? And making sure that you're disclosing at the point why you're collecting it, what you're going to use it for, giving them an understanding of the rights they have related to being able to be opted out, removed, collecting their own data, letting them know who has access to that data, what they're using it for. Yeah. There's a lot of these things that you can take care of very easily just by when you collect the data, you give the right information and you get explicit consent from that person at the time you collect the data. And that can be a check-in if you're in Europe. It could be, online if someone's in Europe when they're providing the information. So, it isn't as hard as PCI, but it's something you have to think through as probably as hard as you did PCI when you went through it. Hopefully you went through it, although there's a lot of people didn't.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We know they didn't.
Yeah. But the interesting thing with the difference with PCI though is now a lot of these systems they've been compartmentalized off, right? So if you're using, I won't use a hotel example necessarily, but you use Stripe or something like that to process your PIN. That's great. You don't have to worry about it, right?
Right. It's all tokenized, and you don't have any. Yeah.
Everything's great, and some of the hotel
you don't get that in GDPR.
No,
you're not going to get that.
Well, it's not practical.
But you didn't have that. You didn't have that at the beginning, right? But GDPR is so much more complicated. It starts getting into how you use this data, and it gets down to the biometric stuff. So if you start having some sort of biometric validation of that individual to open your guest room door, or somehow validate their identity, that's a problem.
Well, and that's probably less likely of a risk, right? But
realistically,
looking at those fringe cases of what they would consider more sensitive data, it's like political views, religious views, members of a trade union. You can find out those three things just by the fact someone attended some kind of group function on your property. So that's something you need to understand. I don't need to associate that group segment with individual names, and don't ever want to use that data, because then you're in a whole world of hurt related to GDPR. That's when you get into that kind of sensitive data, you have to have a designated data officer, and you have to disclose who that is in all your policies, and people have to be able to contact them. So I think to mitigate risk, you need to really question every piece of data you're collecting and why, and really say, am I actually using this? So, is the physical address something you really need once they've stayed, or can you really delete it from the folio once they've stayed? Legally, you might be required to from your state or federal level, but those laws supersede the GDPR, so you're okay in those cases.
That's right.
But you need to be really mindful about what you're collecting and why you're collecting, and no longer saying, I'm going to collect everything I can in case I one day want to use it. That mentality needs to go away completely.
Yeah, which is the underlying mentality of big data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Collect everything and then look for patterns, right?
Well, and gee, I wonder why. It's a bad idea to just have all of that accessible data. I wonder if there's anything we could talk about that's been in the news lately about the dangers of having too much accessible data out there.
What could you possibly be talking about?
I think Facebook had a little something happen that has something to do with Trump.
I'm sorry. What's Facebook? I've never heard of it.
It's a system.
Kind of like MySpace.
It's like MySpace.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Well, it might be by the time it gets done. It might end up being like MySpace. No, I do want to just add one little comment to the last of the conversations we had as we step into Facebook, which ties to the Facebook thing, and that is we all have been exposed to different platforms of functionality, and we know very easily that you can cross pattern data collections and begin to take the anonymity from people and define them into individual identifiers. There is means of cell phone integrations, there's a means of location integrations, there's a means of data acquisition on social platforms. And the fact that people don't lock or secure themselves or define who they broadcast to, going to the Facebook lead, allows all these multi-platform usages to begin to triangulate and begin to identify your individuality, where you literally lose.
No, I disagree. I disagree.
I've done it though.
Wait.
I've got to tell a quick story.
I disagree in a different way, though. Hold on. I don't disagree with what you said factually. I disagree from an intent perspective, and I disagree from. I look. Hold on one second, Robert. I know you want to tell a story, but I have one very key point to make about this, and I'm going to be potentially the contrarian. Everybody has all your data.
Yep.
Right. It's over. The game is over. Right. Whether it's your credit card, whether it's your location with your mobile phone and all the places that you go, et cetera, all your data is out there, right? Yes. Facebook had a terrible policy here in the beginning. They have since changed that policy, right? That's factual. However, the fact of the matter is the data is already out there. The horse has already left the barn, and that's true regardless. You look at the Equifax thing, and everybody went nuts about that until they didn't.
Right.
This is a big PR problem for Facebook. It's something that they're going to take a beating for a time. It may lead to some regulation and oversight and some GDPR equivalent in the United States. But realistically, to think that your data is somehow safe when it's in the hands of a third party today, and to think that your data isn't in the hands of a third party today is nonsensical.
Yep. Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that from the idea that there is now means to create correlations that you as a market
for a long time.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Robert.
Who's been smart enough to gather it?
Or willing to put the effort in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Robert, you had a story. Sorry, you had a story. Go ahead.
The story was about Lauren when Lauren said, "I've done this," because we were sitting in the HSMAI Digital Marketing Council meeting, right? Lauren and I have a prime. I'm sitting in a prime location because on my left is Lauren Gray, on my right is Sean Auckland from Google, right? So we're talking about something or other. Lauren brings up the topic about no. If you use some JavaScript, you can pull this together and put that. And I've done it, and it's great. And you can, kind of break through this Google, basically the filters that protect the personal data, right? By using your own, first party cookies and matching it with them and go, great, we know who they are. And Sean goes, you can't do that. And Lauren's like, oh no, I've done it. So you can see kind of the expression. Lauren probably didn't notice Sean's expression, but Sean started taking some notes at that point.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Sean,
it's out of personal information, and your name is. I send a representative around to have a conversation.
Yeah,
but again, I mean, it's Facebook didn't necessarily have a good policy to begin with. I think they've been kind of dumb about this. I think they've handled this horrifically from a PR perspective. The reality is Facebook's actions here are no more egregious than Equifax.
Well,
they're
way less egregious than Equifax.
Well, that's what
Facebook.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, here's the big difference. Facebook has never given kind of the idea to their users that everything they do is protected. Okay, if anything, Facebook has, by giving you the ability to protect your data and your post and who sees it, they've given the opposite.
Right.
Which is, hey, if you don't go through these steps, everything you do is public.
Right.
And if you read and understand what really happened here with Cambridge Analytica, the media, of course, has not reported it correctly.
Of course not.
So what you need to understand is the source, the key audience that caused the problem are any of you, and I'm going to say it, any of you idiots who go on Facebook and do these stupid apps that tell you what day of the year is your day, or what friends of yours would kill you in another life.
Oh no! Or you're right. No, the big one this past weekend was, what is your Irish drunk name for St. Patrick's Day? All those.
You might as well.
Things, right?
Doing that, you might as well just publish everything about you, because those are apps that are preying on the dim or the weak in the herd. And where the media has gotten it wrong is what the impact of that audience had on its friends. So what you need to understand is it's just because you do one of those stupid apps, you really are only screwing yourself. Those apps do not get access to your friends' data. They just have access to...
They did.
Oh, they did then.
Yeah,
they did then.
Back then they did? Okay, because now they don't.
Yeah.
Like that's
right.
That's
right. So two things happened. So Facebook used to allow you to download all the friend data as well, which is why this went from the 270,000 or 300,000
to 50 million.
To 50 million, right? Because they each had 200 friends, and suddenly you got 50 million people.
Yeah.
Right. So they did. Then they told Cambridge Analytica, they changed the policy and said you have to delete all the friends' data. And Cambridge Analytica did not. They certified that they had, and they actually hadn't.
Right.
So
in all fairness,
pieces to this, but
it's this detail that will come out when there's possibly an investigation is going to stop Facebook from having any permanent issues. Now, they may pay a hefty fine, but they're fine with that. They have plenty of money. It won't be a fine.
PR application is going to be tough for them for a while.
Well, that's because they didn't rip the Band-Aid. They violated rule number 1 of crisis management, which is just rip the Band-Aid off, step out in front. Yes, this was a weak policy, but here's where we were wrong. Here's where Cambridge Analytica was wrong. Here's where the evil people who it's turned out are involved in this were wrong. But let's get to something a little bit more important. If we're going to put a message out for everyone to understand, I think the message should be this: you are constantly being manipulated by smart people. Mm-hmm. And if you understand that, maybe you'll take a second to pause before going all Robert Cole on something.
No, I am not.
Robert is one of those people who is smart enough to know not to go Robert Cole on someone until he understands if he's being manipulated. But you are being...
In defense of myself, and I will pull a Tim Peter here, and I will post the presentation I gave in 2012, which was my Creepy Line presentation, which is the Association of Travel Marketing Executives. And my poster child for this was Groupon, because they had clicky value wheel. And this is the most disingenuous, evil thing I've really come across, even still to this date. So they had a little thing, and it was clicky the value wheel, and you could click on it and you would win stuff. And they had win $100, win $5,000, all this sort of stuff. And they showed Clicky as a wheel which had like 8 divisions, which would give you, like, if you're doing the math, 16% chance of winning one of these prizes. Well, that graphic was a little misleading because the odds range really went from like 1 in 20 to 1 in 100,000. Right. So really, really bad odds, but it required a Facebook like to play. Right. Yeah. So if you liked it, then you got to spin. They also disabled the unlike capability, so you couldn't unlike them once you clicked. Right. And Facebook again,
violation of a terms of service somewhere.
Well, but in 2011, Facebook,
right, it wasn't.
Facebook allowed this stuff. Right.
Of course.
So, then, not only did the payouts only apply to select deals, which are kind of hand-picked Facebook crap. Yeah, you could get $10 off, but it was something that was probably pretty junky that you didn't want. But here was the worst part. If you looked at the little thing that popped up that said, yeah, you're doing this, here's the data Facebook's going to collect, right? Mm-hmm. On the user, their email, their birthday, their relationship status, their likes, and their check-ins. That's a pretty big.
That's enough to build a full psychological profile on you,
especially adding survey stuff on top.
No, here's what Cambridge. Here's what Cambridge Analytica, feasted on. Then you got your friends, your friends' birthdays, their likes, and their check-ins that they have shared with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so that's how they did it. That was completely okay from Facebook back in those days.
Well, to be fair, their policy actually said you can't do any kind of usage of likes or comments or anything like that for financial gain or for gaining data unless you get approval through Facebook back in 2000.
Right. So they're not going to get.
No one did. There was no enforcement. Right. They didn't.
Right. Yeah. Well, they'd say, no, we're just using it for this game, right? We're just using it for this game, and that's fine. And we got this.
Yeah, but
stuff. because they wanted to give it to other people, to other friends, and to segment. Their pitch was they wanted to segment the information properly or something like that.
All right, Tim, I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, this stuff makes me want to just vomit. Right? It just
absolutely
drives me insane, and the reason it drives me insane is because that we've lost the sense of caveat emptor, right? The reality is people always say they care about their privacy. And then they say, oh, I'll give you all kinds of crap for a 1 in 16 chance of winning some garbage promotion from Groupon, right? A lot of this crap, people are not aware of how this works. And they assume, well, these guys are going to be good guys. They're all going to be nice to me and they're going to take care of me. They're not. If consumers give away their data for nothing all the time.
For convenience.
For convenience.
Or entertainment.
Right. Constantly. And then they're constantly shocked that people use this for, less than benign purposes and sometimes exceedingly less than benign purposes. I'm not trying to say Facebook is innocent here. Facebook screwed up massively, and they have an obligation to their users to try to protect their users from the folks who are the least benign. The reality is
the politicians, you mean?
but insert the asshole du jour wherever you like, right? I mean, realistically, it doesn't matter who the jerk is. Some jerk is going to take advantage of some loophole, and consumers need to get smarter about this. They have to.
I'm still going to say, let's be honest, Tim. What is going to be easier to try and change? To create a level of thoughtfulness on the stuff you see and not take stuff as truth when you see it? Do you think it'll be easier to get people to do that or to get people to protect their data? Which do you think will be easier?
Oh, I think both are a nightmare. I think it's pushing a rope up a hill.
Right.
Realistically.
Which is why government has to step in and regulate what data we can use and how we use it.
Right, but here's the thing. The EU, and this is where I forget which article was in Robert's share, but someone was taking the perspective that the EU wants to make it something that you can make money off of. That's untrue. If you actually look at previous things that the EU has dabbled in, and it almost made it into GDPR, it's the inability for the consumer to sell their private profile is something
Right.
the EU is interested in. They want to save the citizens from being able to do that, to make that transaction of buying someone's profile illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm just not optimistic about this, you know, in the sense of, and I'm usually pretty optimistic. I'm usually pretty, let's look on the bright side, et cetera. You know, I think regulation is going to work badly. Look at the regulation of GDPR. GDPR actually basically makes it easier for Facebook to do what they do and makes it harder for a competitor to Facebook to come in, because the hurdles that you have to clear to start out are really, really, really high.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, you know, there's a reason Facebook isn't fighting this too hard, and that's because it kind of creates a moat for them.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, realistically, this is something where consumers have to get smarter, and we as marketers, we as the good guy marketers, need to do the best we can to educate people on here. I actually think the GDPR requirement where we have to disclose what we do with stuff is the right thing to do, because when people say, here's how I take good care of you and I disclose it, we're more likely to attract consumers and educate them to, wait, why are these guys over here not doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be, it's going to take time, but you know, we went through some of this with e-commerce, you know, 20 years ago. Well, I'm not going to put my credit card on the web, and there was credit card scams and stuff like that. And now that mostly doesn't happen. Mostly. Well, no, not when it does.
Percentage-wise.
When it does, you don't have Senate hearings.
When it does, you were really, really dumb and you fell for something. Really.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right, and there's not Senate hearings. Right, it's more, oh, that poor son of a gun.
Well,
right,
but again, you have some very, very clever, you know, sock puppets and spear phishing methods that are employed.
And will that ever not be true?
Oh no!
The minute there's a loophole,
absolutely.
is there going to be some jerk who exploits it?
Hey!
Well,
let's not
and
let's
that
not
came
make
out
this about gun control, okay?
Ed always likes to drag us into the places I always start.
Tim, I'm just going off of what you said. I'm trying to keep you honest.
And Tim doesn't want to talk about gun control, but we'll talk about Iran instead, because this morning, you know, there was a nice press, you know, release that came out that basically.
Welcome to this week in hospitality digital marketing.
Oh, I thought it was hostility digital marketing. I'm so sorry. No, but the one thing that was interesting was there were hundreds of thousands of professors that were targeted, but it was very clever spear phishing, because they went out and they looked through social networks and academic directories, and they found colleagues. They mocked up pages that looked like that, and they're talking about their research, right? Here's someone interested in this professor's research. And I mean, we're talking apparently highly tailored to their personal interests and needs, and saying, can you do this? Then there's a login page. Oh, and it looks like a page with my stuff. I'm going to log in at my university. And that's, you know, it's basically a sock puppet page, and all of a sudden they have your login stuff, and who knows? I don't know what they were doing with all that stuff, but
come on, show of hands. We are all, you know, smarter than your average bear when it comes to this stuff, because we've all done it for a long time, right?
Do you have empirical evidence measuring the intelligence of bears on this, Tim?
I actually do.
Or are you just making it up?
I wrote a blog post about this in 2011.
That was it was a Rutgers study Tim was involved in as a voluntary subject.
Exactly.
This is the control.
But it was a wholly other kind of bears. Anyway, what I'd like to say is, show of hands from the five of us. We're going to call this a statistically valid sample. Show of hands. Has anyone here ever clicked on a link, and the moment after you click the link had the, I really hope I didn't just do something stupid? Show of hands.
Oh, yeah. Which
Bullshit,
day?
Stuart. I'm calling.
Stuart and Robert are both going, you've never clicked a link. Okay, there we go. Right.
I don't have
none of that recorded.
I haven't done it a lot, but occasionally you click the link and went,
I'll be fair.
What did I just do?
It's been at least 8 years since I've done it. And the only reason I know what the marker is, it's when I took Easy Yield from through PCI. and actually had to start paying attention to security and how hacks are usually socially engineered, that's when I became tinfoil hat man. And that's why you all laugh at me when I tell you the problem with having Amazon Alexa and Samsung smart TVs and Hey Siri turned on. You all laugh at me, but that's the next place. That's the next place we'll be talking about in a couple of years, that the next major election that gets who's more evil than Trump? Let's think. Let's name it.
Satan.
When Satan gets elected, when Adolf Hitler's nephew gets elected to U.S. presidency, it's going to come out that it was through manipulating data learned through these voice control systems.
That's probably true, but here's the flip side, right? And I talked about this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and on one a few weeks before that, where I refer to digitals like gravity, right? Where I can't remember the guy's name. Some French philosopher came up with a line that's really great, which is, when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck.
Right.
And I like your statement. I remember that.
But
remember that one.
But here's the thing. Here's where I have a problem with that, right? It assumes that the ship and the shipwreck are of equal value. And frankly, the benefits of the ship, to me, far outweigh the risk and the outcomes of the shipwreck. So, I have house and all that kind of stuff. And
to anyone who
could I have a shipwreck? I absolutely could, but I'm willing to take that chance because I'm an educated consumer.
I want to give some clarity on Tim's point here. It's either I do that or I throw in your face like how that comment could be construed as contrary to the attitude you were taking to the previous situation we were talking about, which is, I will add that you said you need to do right by it. And you need to not do the things like what Lauren was talking about when you realize that there's an opportunity created when the ship is created. You need to not be the one who drives the shipwreck to happen. And I know you mean that, Tim, because the attitude of saying that the ship is more valuable than the shipwreck in the specific issue I was just talking about, which is, if you think the data that is gleaned from what happened in Facebook in 2014 was easily manipulated, the data that's gleaned from recording conversations and logging them server side is going to be far deeper. And you're talking about giving people the ability to completely understand how to shake you to your core because of what's tracked when your conversations.
What potential exists to be tracked? Let's be really clear about that, right? Let's be very clear.
I think it's naive to say that it's not there. It's naive. It may not be Amazon doing it, but really Samsung. You think Samsung is taking care? They came out and publicly
I'm not using any Samsung stuff.
They came out and publicly warned
an educated customer
to watch what they say in front of the Samsung smart televisions.
Yeah, of course. I don't have Samsung smart television.
Right.
Be an educated consumer.
Right. So Amazon may be possibly unlikely to be recording enough. I still doubt it. I still think they're recording it. I just don't think they are as careless as maybe Samsung would be. But I will say, this is my problem with some of these technologies. It should be illegal for voice to be pinging server with things you're saying unless it's engaged. That should be something today.
I agree.
Unless you're engaging listening should be illegal. And, so that's my problem with it, is it's not. And because it's not, and there's nothing around it, and there's no expectation of privacy set. If you read the terms of services of these devices, they're setting absolutely zero expectation of privacy. So, I think this is a modern day example of what the mess Facebook's in right now. And I'm saying it because as consumers, we need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of what could be happening in the background and not laugh at it.
No, I wouldn't dispute that. I would never dispute that. I absolutely agree. You have to be an educated consumer about this stuff, right? Yeah. The flip side is, I think we need to look at things more in the holistic, I think a more holistic approach to some of this, right? When we go back to even things like Cambridge Analytica, right? As a for instance, and I don't want to get into politics. You guys know that I try not to get into politics, mainly because I don't think I'm going to change anybody's mind. If you're for Trump, great. If you're against Trump, great. The likelihood that I'm going to say the thing that suddenly makes you go, "Oh my God, I've been wrong all along," is pretty slim. So I'd rather not.
I don't care about talking.
I'd rather not waste my breath or somebody else's time. No. But hear me out for 1 second, right? You know, we talk about Cambridge Analytica, we talk about the things they did on Facebook, and they undoubtedly had some influence. We also have to recognize the fact that the guy got, depending on whose numbers you look at, anywhere between $2 and $5 billion worth of free media on broadcast television.
And that had
because that had a huge impact too. I mean,
there's nothing that's just 100%.
And you know, this was this, and this was. I mean, you can check box after box after box. You know, the way stories were covered, the way stories weren't covered, etc. Right? So all of these things play a role. And you know, my point about the ship and the shipwreck thing is, you know, yes, I do think the value of the ship outweighs the risk of the shipwreck, as long as it's a ship that you actually have some confidence isn't going to sink the moment you put your foot into it. So, I mean, you got to be an educated customer. You have to be smart about these things. But the reality is, you know, even this Facebook thing, if it affected 50 million people, which is bad, let's be really clear. How many people are on Facebook?
All of them.
Right.
It's like they're 2 billion.
It's a small percentage.
Right.
The 50 million is a small percentage.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, you know, this happens to be a particularly egregious example of somebody using data in a way they should not have been allowed to, that Facebook handled terribly from a PR perspective, that they handled badly from a PR perspective 2 ways. First, Ed, I completely agree with you that you got to rip the Band-Aid off on these things. That's rule 0, right? That's not even rule number 1. That's like
acknowledge the problem.
Acknowledge you screwed up. And then second, they compounded it by like trying to be legalistic about it. Mm-hmm. You know, for a couple of days they were saying things like, well, technically it wasn't a breach. If you're explaining what a breach is or not, you've lost.
Yeah, don't debate semantic.
No, and in some cases, it technically wasn't a breach because they acquired the data. And they repurposed that data in a method that violated Facebook's terms and conditions for that.
But more importantly, they've used the data in a way that violated consumers' trust of Facebook.
Right.
Fundamentally, that's the thing that Facebook needed to address. We didn't have the proper procedures in place. The proper procedures allowed people to do some things you probably wouldn't have wanted them to do. We're sorry. Here's how we make sure that never happens again.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, I think everyone that understands it would agree that Facebook didn't do anything nefarious, right? There was no agenda there. It was just a lack of oversight and a lack of protection of the consumer data that they had that led to this, you know?
And that lack of oversight helped fuel their growth too, right? Because they were in a situation. Yeah. It's like, hey, use this stuff, target it, look at what you can do amazing things. And then you have some creative people on the other side going, you could use. And I'm not pointing fingers at Lauren or anything. But
I think it's a stop sign mentality. It's a stop my sign mentality. This when you're dealing with companies that are in walled gardens like Facebook that have their own knowledge of their own systems, is you can pull up to a stop sign, and if there's no policeman there and you know there's no traffic in the middle of nowhere, what's the likelihood that you're going to stop compared to if there's a cop car sitting right next to the stop sign? So there's no regulation.
The only thing I'm going to caution you on is some of these new laws like GDPR and stuff like that do have gray area on purpose. So I will warn you today forward that doing the things that you can get away with because the ship's been created, you're no longer in a safe place where previously doing like what Lauren had figured out that he could do back then, there was no way that could be construed as illegal or a violation, and he wasn't going to get fined. GDPR does kind of leave a lot of gray area, and the FTC has gotten really good about leaving enough gray area to put you in prison for this stuff.
Yeah, totally. And so, you know, I trust you. You're an ethical human being. You're a good guy and all this other kind of stuff. The fact that you are able to do the thing that you do, I don't think you're doing it for nefarious purposes. I don't think you're doing it to be a bad guy in any way, shape, or form. The fact that A, it is possible for you to do it, and B, that there is no regulation that prevents you from doing it is a tragic error. right? Period.
Yeah,
not
and
that
I
you
would
did
argue,
it.
even
The
though it's
fact that
not
the frameworks allow for it.
Well,
but even though it's not nefarious, it's still, at the end of the day, similar reasons, right? Because if he's trying to collect data to manipulate a situation or to push something in a favorable direction to him or his clients, it's not really a lot of difference between that. And I'm not saying that to criticize Lauren. I'm just saying marketers in general, we're in business to manipulate and persuade people. That's our job, right? So the more we can learn about them,
for good.
to sell our clients products, which
good
products to help humanity.
Good products.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not really innocent bystanders in this, because we're all doing the same thing, and we may not be breaking the law to do it, but at the end of the day, the intent is the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the problem is that there's the creepy line, right?
That's right.
Is the division between the genius marketing campaign where you go, wow, that was fantastic, and something goes a little bit further, you go, they should not have done that, right? And sometimes that's very, very, very close, right?
So I teach a course on personalization at Rutgers University. I was actually teaching it yesterday afternoon, and we do an exercise where I give people the same scenario 3 times, and I ask people to raise their hands, creepy or not creepy, right? And we just keep ramping up, trying to get closer and closer to the line, and in the final version, absolutely try to cross it. And what happens consistently is the first version of the scenario, everybody in the classroom raises their, I say, show of hands, who thinks this is creepy? And one person will raise their hand and no one else will. And in the last version of the scenario, I say, how many people think this is creepy? And everyone will raise their hands except for one person, right? Which is one of the things with the creepy line. It's kind of where the customer says it is.
Absolutely.
So we have to be really conscious of, I always say you should have somebody in the room whose bonus doesn't depend on you doing the thing you're talking about.
Right.
Because if your bonus depends on doing it, everybody in the room's bonus depends on doing it. Guess what everybody in the room is going to say?
Yep,
absolutely, we should do that.
Right.
And to Stort's point, and I think Stort is spot on about this, is I don't think it's with ill intent, right? I don't think these people are like maladjusted or things like that. I think you get excited by the possibilities. You go, this is really cool. We can help our customer. We're not doing bad by their customer. So, of course, we would do this.
You're making it easier for them.
You're making it easier for them, right? And I think that's the thing we have to be very conscious of is taking a good, hard look in the mirror consistently to say, wait, if this was your spouse, partner, child, whatever, who was on the receiving end of this, would you be okay with that? And is there somebody else there who's not incented to be okay with that?
That's always a good
hold the mirror up to it.
It's always a good measuring stick in anything you're doing in business. Ask how you would feel if someone did that to your loved one. And if there's no pause where you'd be completely fine, then either you're good or you're a psycho. But at least
it's at least you define where you fall on the continuum.
But it's trickier than that, because it comes down to that particular individual and what somebody loves and thinks is great. And so that whole trade-off of privacy versus convenience and how trust layers in. Because again, way back, I think I've mentioned this one before. When I was at Budget Rent-A-Car, we had a thing with Priceline, and unfortunately, we got involved in the whole name your own price, which was just horrible for Budget. But the good thing was we set up an application server. So
how could name your own price be horrible for a company named Budget? Like, aren't they the cheapest? Wouldn't that mean it would just be a landfall? Like,
you don't get to use that. You don't get to use that name, Ed, and name your own price.
Yeah, but Budget means you are cheapest, right? Like they were.
But it doesn't matter. But it's blind. It's blind. You just put the lowest rate and everybody files. And nobody cares who got their Taurus at 10 a.m. at LAX, right? It's just going to be the lowest price. It was very bad. It was not accretive to earnings. Let's just put it that way, profitability. But the cool thing that we did was we worked with Priceline because we were trying to, how do you make a shit sandwich out of this thing? But what we looked at was, hey, they've got all these people booking air. They've got all the information on the arrival time, the departure time that perfectly aligns with car rentals. And that was great. So we had a thing with a timer, and you know, it was the bounce back email or the confirmation email saying, "Hey, do you want fries with that?" Where the fries was the car. Unbelievable, 40% conversion, terrific. The one thing we didn't do, which we could have, was, oh, do you want us to just put it on the same credit card? Because we were the merchant of record. Right. Priceline had that stuff. That was pre-PCI, and there were people making very, very strong, compelling recommendations.
Yeah.
That would be great, and I bet there would be a bunch of Priceline users who would go, I got no problem with that. Was easy. Yeah, I want it put on the same credit card. I'm good.
Right.
But
it just takes that one who goes, wait a second.
Hey, how did you do that? Sort of thing.
Right.
And did I say that was okay for you to charge? I think Priceline gave you permission, and that's the problem with the GDPR, and that's the essence of GDPR. I think. Right. My layman's approach is getting that permission from the consumer to say, yes, you can go do this for that purpose.
So going
guys,
back,
I unfortunately have to drop off. I hate to drop off early, but I've got a call that I've got to get on. I know I arrived a couple minutes late, but this is a great conversation. I would wish I could continue to participate in it, because this is actually something very fascinating.
If people want to read your blogs and know all the things that they need to know about the hospitality industry world,
TimPeter.com for all the stuff you need. TimPeter.com/blog, but TC Peter on Twitter. That's the easiest way to find me.
And Things Out Loud podcast.
TimPeter.com/podcast.
Yep. Awesome.
And just know, Tim presents always that he has these client things. He's out at political rallies, I believe. I think that is really what he's doing, which is conflicting with.
No, I'm more like Cambridge Analytica. I prefer to work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
He's manipulating us all. That's
exactly.
Right. From his volcano island off the coast of New Jersey.
Gents, have a great weekend. I will talk to y'all next
Good
week.
To see you as always.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you.
So to bring this back, though, to advice we can leave people with, be cautious in the things you do. When you're on any platform that gives you a choice to protect yourself, take the strongest protection settings possible.
Unless it creates an inconvenience. You know, you've got to weigh that. You've got to discern that.
I don't think I agree with that.
I mean, it's a personal choice, right?
Like, that is a personal choice.
Yeah. Well, and, because of that, I didn't vote Trump. Because I had all my settings set correctly that people could vote on my
So are you saying, had you not had your settings, that you would have been persuaded based on the
one thing I'll say, I know I like to claim I'm smart,
Bannon?
but I will kind of claim something right now, is during and leading up to the election, I actually started to shut off everything because everything just felt so poisonous that I stopped watching the news. I stopped looking at my news feed, and now that you look back on what happened, I kind of look at it and wonder, was I picking up on the manipulation?
Right. Absolutely. And that was a specific strategy, was to give people such incredible fatigue that they would give up and not vote for, particular candidate.
For the first time, I voted Democrat.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, but again, I think there were a lot of people who just stood on the sidelines because, why bother? I don't like either of these candidates. I'm going to go toss it to a third one, and all that stuff winds up mattering. I mean, you look at the election in Pennsylvania, and that district that went 20 points for Trump, and the Democrat just won, and it was 600, 700 votes out of a lot of votes, right? I mean, and it's I think it's very interesting.
You do have to take everything with a grain of salt that you see on the internet. Full stop. And before you share something,
except for this show, everything we say is gospel.
Everything except this one,
especially this show. Specifically, anything I say or Robert says, maybe just Google and try to figure out if we're giving opinion or fact.
The same thing, right? Opinion and fact. There's no
right. Ed's opinion is fact. I mean, we all know that.
They make it sound like.
Exactly.
No, I mean you need to be able to, and this is kind of what I want to leave everyone with, is learn how to start forming your own thought process on the things you learn about, because there is so much more exposure to you now that people are manipulating you way more than before. Back, like if you picture where you could manipulate people in the past, it had to be through either religious channels, like as far as their church or things like that. School, you could manipulate people through education system. There were, a limited amount of channels on television and radio. Those were your ways to manipulate people en masse. Now, it's literally just digital. It's so much easier to mass manipulate, everyone that you don't need to go through the block and tackle of, getting a religion to do it or doing it through the education system. You literally can do it through targeted advertising.
Well, either targeted advertising or content,
right,
creation schemes.
I mean,
that's where Cambridge really.
That is advertising, right?
Yeah.
That's
yeah. It's not paid, but I mean, it's more of content strategies where, and the thing that really made Cambridge evil was they were intentionally creating blatantly false, propaganda, right? And then targeting it to people they know would be who would be most, susceptible to it and most likely to share it. Right. I mean, those are two huge signals that they were
using. I don't want to just persecute Facebook, because let's face it, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, all guilty of the TripAdvisor. They're all guilty of the same exact tactics.
Right.
I mean, 100% same exact thing.
Right. Because you get ad.
You get
ad, right? It's win at all costs, and there's a profit motive, right? Because if you can get that defined psychographic demographic, advertisers can then go target them and sell them dish soap or God knows whatever product that might.
Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Exactly. Yeah, but no. Another thing is, before I did the Creepy Line presentation in 2011, I did a 5-part series on T News on fake review optimization, right? Which are tons of these techniques, basically sock puppet accounts and things like that. My point was, it's really hard, because at that point it was, Google's trying to fight search spam, right? People with bad links and these, bad, misleading clicks, right, to get to some spot. But it's a lot harder for Facebook to do it, because they had groups that were out there building huge numbers of sock puppet accounts, which is exactly what all these groups in the election were wind up doing, which could then go amplify these messages. And I wound up in my case, because I'm on a little shared HostGator account for my little website, which does not get massive volumes of traffic, but my site wasn't working. I'm like, what's going on? It's down. So I call up HostGator and they go, it's you. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're going, we had a denial of service attack, which was one of the largest we have seen. It took down 1,000 servers who were on this shared account, and it came out of places like Russia. And then because I called out in this 5-part series on T News, which was kind of going around the world on, look at all the stuff that people are doing, and someone got pissed, right? And so they're, I think they were kind of sloppy. They're, we'll take down Rockwell. They probably could have done it other ways, but they just decided.
Don't tell them how, because you could be upsetting people now.
Yeah.
By the way, I posted a link to a great movie if you want to get some sensitivity training on what our future could be if you don't start getting smarter to this manipulation. It's a great movie.
Idiocracy.
It is Idiocracy.
Okay. Idiocracy is a great movie.
Yeah. And it's so accurate on.
It's scary how truthful it could be.
Listen, I mean, we are not that far. If you look at what Cambridge Analytica was able to pull off here, we're not that far away from convincing farmers that they need to water their crops with Gatorade because it has electrolytes.
Yeah, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson could easily be the next president. So
which is basically Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Well, if you follow the timeline progression, and I had a fun conversation recently about it. It's like you look at the fact that we used to have our positions on how we felt about things. We would sit around a table. I think it's red. You think it's blue. Whatever. Then we got into the PC world, where it's like, oh, I need to be a little bit more thoughtful about what your considerations are. Maybe not express my views so strongly because it may make you feel uncomfortable or out of place. So then we got into the peer pressure-based system opinion mode, where we're listening to other people to begin to formulate our opinions. Maybe we may have kept our personal opinions internalized, but we certainly stopped sharing them. Then eventually we began to think maybe we're not right. Maybe we should think about public opinion. Now we're in a world where that public opinion is manipulated because of our exposure to personality traits and psychographic data and so forth that we have shared so promiscuously on every platform we've ever touched and surrendered our rights to control it. So now we basically form our opinion based on the consensus of the people we dialogue with. And these platforms have allowed that tailoring of content to even be refined. And as marketers, we leverage that just as badly. I mean, I just wrote down the question in the notes. It's like, are we any better compared to what we're seeing with Analytica for the fact that we're still looking for that opportune moment to present product at a time most favorable to a person's interest in purchasing it? You know?
And I think there's a big difference now to what they used to be, because even though we have a plethora of information, or got more information, more opinions than we've ever had, confirmation bias plays a bigger role today than it ever did, because we choose the channels we look at, right? We choose if we're right wing to watch Fox News. We choose if we're left wing to watch MSNBC. But on top of that, the big advertisers or the platforms like Facebook, like YouTube, like Google, they all are going to look at what we like. And if I watch a Louder with Crowder video on YouTube, I'm going to get inundated with ads for other stuff, and their recommendation engine is going to show me a bunch more right-wing leaning things. We as individuals have to be discerning of what we're consuming and say, okay, maybe my opinion is right, but let me watch the counter opinion. Let me choose to expose myself to other ideas, because most people aren't doing that today, and that's where you've got this divisiveness, especially in the U.S., where this big divide has happened, where people that were right-leaning are now extreme right, and people that were left-leaning are now extreme left, and there's no intermediate between the two.
And it's because people are just not watching enough cat videos on the internet.
I think that's been the
cat videos created the problem, honestly.
Which is probably, Ed, why we like you on the show so much for, because when we talk about people that get wishy-washy and about their opinion, you are not one of those people. You're like, no, I am this person. Stick in sand. This is my opinion. Point of view.
And you either like me for my opinion or hate me for my opinion. It used to be people
at the
just
same
thought
time.
it was crazy.
I'm confused. Lauren, remember when Ed was invited on, you thought he would be like a cat video, and people would watch because of.
I did have that thought that maybe if we had Ed on, it would be like the cat videos. But no, we're all looking for affirmation and acceptance, and to Stuart.
And you got none of it from me. What a huge disappointment I've been for this show.
That's funny.
But here's the thing. I mean, like Stuart's saying, you need to take care, because the public is being driven down a road that almost makes the evil point of view somewhat correct, which is we're better with less choice. Mm-hmm. If you listen to all the maniacal villains in all movies, it's about how the human species needs to be ruled and told how to live in order to be truly happy. I'm not going to lie. I'm guessing some of that is probably just talking about where we're at today. Like, people are angry. Right. And I don't even think they know why they're angry. Well, you're angry because you're being manipulated.
Because the Russian ads told them to be angry about something.
Right. I mean, it is insane.
And it wasn't even the Russian ads. It was just the guy running for the local state representative who decided to go, have some outlandish God knows what, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, somebody like in Louisiana that wears a gun and puts a cowboy hat and rides a horse in to get voted on. After he went over and just knows around the town quickly.
That's just someone who knows they're
I don't know. It seems a little pretty ambiguous on that. But anyway, yes, to that end.
So we want to move on to another topic.
Let's go less sad, scary,
dark, sad,
hopeless, and let's go into something fun. Like, how about Airbnb claims 20,000 hosts apply for Plus and 1,100 hotels want in?
Yeah. And I think that 1,100 hotels
is understated.
Oh yeah, I think that's just so far, right?
Right.
Because I think there will be a bunch who kind of sit on the sideline and go, "Oh, is that it's working?" And I think that number gets bigger. I think that's a great number for Airbnb. I mean, it's not too big. I mean, I'm not sure what the distribution of those 1,100 properties are, but they've got the whole world. And if they're interesting, and not all of them will probably be accepted, but that's probably a nice little test size to see what works, what doesn't work. How's this going for?
Oh, I guarantee you it at least is inventory in the top 10 travel markets.
Probably so.
Oh, absolutely.
SiteMinder have a good little place in this right now because they're the exclusive connection partner for hotels at this point.
Right.
So it's
exclusive because they built it, or did they actually get an exclusivity?
They were the launch partner, and everything I've read is they're the only ones that currently are allowed. I think others, including us,
are written by SiteMinder or other?
Yeah, I think in general, I think most of the things I've seen out there have said it. So that's the perception, at least.
Yeah,
that's a legal contract. I don't know.
I think they built the link and wound up in kind of exchange for that, kind of doing the work and saying, hey, and we've got all these properties, and Airbnb was probably smart and said, okay, yeah, we'll test with you, see how it goes.
But I mean, inevitably they're going to open that up to other providers. They'd be crazy not to let folks like Synexus in there. But
I have a question in relation to, because as I'm getting more and more involved with the Airbnb stuff for project work, I've really become, on one side, very impressed with the engagement capabilities of Airbnb as a potential user. I mean, I'm actually planning a long trip in June where mixed up between hotel stays and Airbnb stays, because I've gotten more and more used to the idea of Airbnb and its usability. But I'm really impressed with the what to do's and things to do. And I see that the advantage of it is because there's no predication as to the value proposition to the host that they're going to recommend a local bike shop for renting a bike. Where a hotelier is, well, we're big, we do a lot of business, what's in it for us? I think prohibits them from getting really engaged with some very cool things that Airbnb just doesn't have that problem with. And you get some really neat exposures to stuff.
It's the irony of the Airbnb model. They are a non-local behemoth, monolithic company.
High margin.
Marketing themselves as the pathway to local, to disrupt what in most destinations are the largest employers of locals and the holder of most of the local knowledge of the things to do. They're literally using against the hotel industry and the travel industry in general. They're using the one special thing about this industry against it to beat it. And I think it's hilarious because still, even when you listen, we're at an event right now where there's a lot of talk about storytelling, and it's all the wrong storytelling. It's all the, how can I concoct a fake story through fake means to distribute like an ad versus authentic storytelling. And Stuart and I were in a presentation just recently together where we rolled our eyes at an hour-long presentation of that kind of same garbage, which is this concocted, paid-for version of what should look like authentic storytelling. The industry is still missing the boat on what their opportunity is. You are not marketing toilet paper. You are marketing a lifestyle. You are marketing pleasure. So stop trying to minimize it and stop using spammy techniques to get out there, and just start realizing what your opportunity really is and who you really are, and market that. Because if you don't, you're going to keep getting your guests through the people who figure that out.
They need to approach basically marketing and the relationship like dating, right? And kind of like,
it's the same successful.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Holly on Facebook made a good point. Holly on Facebook made a good point. She says, look at the difference in titles. Hotels have general managers. Airbnb have hosts, which is
right.
Good point.
And they always have that because you were actually staying with them. But I think, again, it's the hiring of Chip Conley was the key, because he's the one who really informed them, here's what the hoteliers are missing. Because again, he was Joie de Vivre. He was building a lot of that on a particular scale, but it was only this particular region and this particular types of properties and things like that. And I think they were able to put that on steroids.
And they're just nailing it. They really are doing a good job at it. They seem like they speak to the hipster that is like, oh, this is so authentic and so real. It is so concocted and BS. Like, that's the thing that makes me laugh, is the most successful model is the one company that is not local. Mm-hmm. And it's hilarious to me.
But they're facilitating that,
hosts, which are local. So
exactly.
There's there's a truth to their authenticity.
The most authentic one is Couchsurfer, right? And that's what they looked at. That was the one, but Couchsurfer has like no business model, right? It's just kind of how to
they're not strategic, right? Airbnb,
but that's the extreme emotion that they're now pointing to, right? Like, so everyone. The reason most people wouldn't be a couch surfer are all the obvious reasons that you wouldn't want to, but inside you want an authentic experience when you're traveling. You want, to feel like you're not a tourist, when you picture what a tourist is. So the bottom line is like, if you're a hotelier, first of all, I want to know year-round why people stay with you. If you can't answer that question for every week of the year, why people are staying with you, then everything else you're doing, you don't know if you're doing it right. And I'll even venture to say you're doing it wrong. And I think part of it is you forget the traveler, the consumer, especially now. Travel is so accessible. They don't know the things you think they know. They don't know what the hotel business is. They don't know the travel industry. They don't know the things you think they know. Right. And you got to stop marketing like they do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, as I've always said, a lot of these guests are literally interested in a one-night stand with your product. Right. They are not looking to get married and have a lifelong relationship, because they're never going to be there again. Right.
Well, I mean, and also too, I think it comes from the fact that, and I still remember this show because it was such a great show that we did, where Robert, you read off the slogan lines of brands, and we couldn't freaking figure out which was which. And that's the dogma that kind of gets in the way of hotels projecting what their real value proposition is they're trying to hold on to an old aesthetic line of what they used to do to broadcast themselves in a more traditional pre-internet engagement. And Airbnb was grown through the process of the internet already being in existence. So we're still using some of those things where they don't care about opulent luxury casual settings in an overstuffed pillow world. That kind of stuff doesn't exist in the context of, is what you said, Robert, a one-night thing where I just want to know where you are, that it's quality, clean, and comfortable, and affordable to what I'm looking for, and that if you're going to give me value propositions of my stay with you, give them to me when I can use them. Don't wait for me to put a carrot on a stick to come back 5-6 times and get a free bottle of water in a back-ass room.
Okay, and just for fun, I just picked one at random. Here we go, guys. What is this? And this one, I'm not going to make it easy by saying it's part of this family or whatever. Maybe I'll give you a hint if you can't do it. But, okay, this brand is a place that's a world apart from everything, yet with a feeling of the comforts of home. Full service and full of warmth. There's a hint. Brand has more than 400 wonderful places to stay, occupying prime locations in gateway cities and getaway destinations around the globe. Every hotel greets each guest with there is one hint that will give it away, because these guys do have a particular differentiator. A simple touch that sets the tone to create a rewarding experience for a guest's entire stay. Now, anybody have any idea what that is? I'll fill in.
No, they're not for it.
I say DoubleTree.
Oh, very good. It's DoubleTree.
What?
The chocolate chip cookie.
That was my clue. When you said there was one identifying thing, there's so few brands that actually have something that is uniquely identifiable. And
do the hotel owners of DoubleTrees know that this is the brand statement? Because I can think of a lot of DoubleTrees that in no way were just described by that.
Yeah, warm.
Feeling like home? Not really. Yeah. They do have cool cookies.
And actually, Hilton does have a couple interesting, Embassy Suites. I mean, they have one. We anticipate travelers' needs and deliver what matters most, which is kind of a generic thing. But all of our guests are welcome with a 2-room suite, free made-to-order breakfast each morning, and complimentary drinks and snacks for 2 hours every night. I go, all right, that's Embassy Suites.
Yeah,
that's a freaking
that is a
awesome brand.
Description of a great brand.
Yep,
like that's a brand that has meaning.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a brand promise they consistently deliver on. Because
well, it's tangible, right? It's
right.
not tangible. So saying you feel like you're at home or it's warm, what does that mean?
Hopefully you're warm.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that mean you turn the AC up? I don't know what that means, So
it doesn't know what that means. I mean, does that mean you have divided rooms, or is it just again, it goes back to generic stuff. Where again, going to the Airbnb description, it's not that every place has its standardizations, but you can definitely feel that the host, if they're a good super host or something like this, that they have this compatible way of describing their product and to the value proposition that's because it's near something, or it's because it has certain features. Like when we're traveling with our dog, the fact that they indicate that they purposely have put additional blocking things in the backyard so that you can let your dog out because they're dog lovers. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff is the things
tangible
that I need to know that.
Right.
Yeah, tangible things.
Yeah, I agree, and I think in a lot of this, people forget. They use the words trying to allude to the fact that we're having personal relationships with our guests in some form, but then they lose the sight of it's about the staff genuinely caring about the guest and being hosts and being in the hospitality industry. And to me, that's the biggest marketing thing you can do, is to make sure that your staff are trained the right way, to treat the guests the right way, and they actually give a shit. They care about the guests, that they're not driven by profit necessarily, that they're driven by
the thing that makes me laugh is the feels like home. The feels like home aspect is such a miss, because what's the current divorce rate in the United States? You're turning off a huge audience because home isn't great for a lot of people.
Screaming at
the kids. Yeah,
it's
funny.
When you get noise complaints, you can be like, "What are you talking about? It feels like home." Our understanding is you have young kids, so we didn't want you to have a quiet night's sleep.
And you know what is that there is that bullshit meter now, and Robert, I think you pointed out many times that I know Ed, you have that as the generations progress through this perennial usage of internet, that the BS meter only gets better. Yeah. And that kind of dialogue, that diatribe, is just white noise background. It's not even read anymore. It's like when you used to describe your hotel with heated pool and color TV. It's like, really, you don't need to say that anymore, because if you don't have that stuff, you really shouldn't be referring to it anyway. So
hairdryer. Have a bed.
Yeah, hairdryer. Very important to have a hairdryer or ironing board, or at least a
comfortable bed. It's like,
although I will say the new thing I like that hotels are doing design-wise that I think they should market is no carpets in the room.
Yeah,
I love that. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a great thing, because carpets are disgusting. And if you think about most hotels that you see that are long in the tooth, the first very visible problem is the carpet. It's usually stained or has pulls, or because carpet does not wear well.
Right.
So these hotels that are going to hard flooring, man, like, market that, because there's an audience. There's an audience for that.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm waiting for the hotel that takes that same sanitizer thing that they have in hospitals, that UV burst machine, and brings it into hotel rooms where they're going to wheel it in and go poof, and sanitize the room. I think that's going to be coming up sometime soon. That somebody's going to start having those.
Have 2 light switches on the wall, and one's a black light.
I bring a light with me. It is not a pretty thing.
Ed's onto something, because I think that's how he's decorated his house. He has like the lion with the black light, the velvet posters of the dogs playing cards. There we go. We got the St. Anne's Hotel Group.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So what else, topic-wise? I don't think, you know what? I think Dan is either, he never got his Kona coffee, or
either that, or Dan watched
2 emails.
Dan tuned in.
Yeah, it was like,
he's like, I am not getting involved.
I want to keep my job.
All right, let's go to fun and lighthearted. How about Epic Games shows off amazing real-time digital human with Siren demo?
Okay,
they cracked the Uncanny Valley, man. You would not tell that was digital.
If the voice wasn't so wrong, I would agree.
The
only thing I'll say is the thing that really threw it off for me is it was a mismatched voice to the person.
Why do you say that? See, I didn't feel that, but it was an English accent, so.
No, it was actually the tone I'm talking about. That did not match.
The expressions? Okay.
Yeah, like that was the thing. Like I think they could have actually made it even creepier and more realistic had they tried a couple voiceovers and done some testing, because I think the voice is off. Maybe the voice is off of the way that, I don't know, what do you call a fake human? The fuman? The way human was moving.
The virtual human? Yeah.
The Vuman just didn't match up with the voice, and it threw it off for me.
I mean, that was a little, right?
I believe, but in fairness to the technology,
it was good.
In fairness to the technology, that was being done on the fly in real time, I believe, with an actress who was, being, it had some sort of motion capture.
Right, which that's what makes it amazing.
That's amazing. Actually,
and the arms on it were disturbing.
Yeah. There was a little bit of an awkward movement with the arm
and just the shape of the arms and everything. Like it's unfortunate, but you can tell what whoever the designer was for that has some misplaced body preference issues.
and this is version 0.7 probably.
And for that, it's incredibly impressive. Video games are awesome.
Yeah. All right, I finally did an email back from Dan. He says, "Shoot, is Ed still on the show? I can't join until he leaves." No, he said he just totally he totally forgot. And can he join in about 20 minutes? I'm like, nah, dude, that's probably a little too late this time. We'll try to see if we can reschedule. So,
sorry,
we ran out of time for you, Dan. Sorry.
Hey, one quick thing, because we were talking about Facebook, and I've been posting all these links. Actually, I think I made a mistake, Lauren. Sorry, I put it on my cross post of it instead of on the actual the live post. So sorry about that. But anyway, there's an interesting
stealing your data, Lauren.
There's an interesting enhancement on Facebook which I have not seen before. So I've posted these links, and there's a little eye in the corner. Have you guys seen this? It says show more information about this article. And so I posted the Epic Games show off, the amazing demo thing, which came from VentureBeat. I click on the little information circle, and it pulls up about this article, VentureBeat. And so it's a validation of here's where the source is. So people can get a little bit
combating fake news is that they show alternate sources.
I love it.
YouTube's which is doing something similar too, where if you've got like a video that's talking about like gun control, it will show to the right or show Wikipedia links to actual, laws and things like that. So,
I had an interesting aha moment on the whole gun control thing, because honestly,
I should have brought it up.
No. Listen, I honestly don't care as long as you're not shooting me, whatever. But what I found was interesting.
Rocket propelled grenades, no problem.
A lot of the statistics quoted in gun deaths in the United States, the majority of those numbers are self-inflicted.
Yep, like
a large majority. And if you actually go by the ones used in crime, we're no worse than most other countries.
But let's be fair, and I'll leave it at this one comment, which is I think there's a lot of misinformation on both sides of the argument. I think.
Well, I was more surprised because I had never heard any argument that included like kind of the fact that, oh, by the way, this very daunting number of the deaths per capita, the vast majority of them are actually self-inflicted, which honestly, I think if you really want to get into an interesting conversation, I think the better argument is hey, why any form of gun control? Because you know what? Depression's real, and you never know, it could strike you at any point, and if you have a gun on hand, you're X% more likely to take your life at a low point than someone else. They're going at it the wrong way. They're using the wrong fear. You should use a fear that will ring more in the person you're talking to, because listen, everyone's had that bad day, that day where everything just piled on, and it's a thin line between the bad day also coming when you're chemically unstable, and if you have a gun, I mean, I got to tell you, these statistics easily tell that story, that having a gun present, it's kind of the choice.
What do you define as chemically stable? Because I haven't really been chemically stable for pretty much. Then you
shouldn't own a gun.
Lauren is not afraid of guns. He's not afraid of.
I think it's an interesting. I think people.
I think it's a great conversation. Let's not do it.
No, I was going to say one thing, that the purpose of why guns were designed is to kill things, right? That's the bottom, and they are a tool that makes that easier, right? Bottom line, in whatever reason, if you're going to use them for good or for bad, and all the stuff we're talking about, marketing and media and using the data for good, it's a tool, right? The data is a tool, the gun's a tool, and there probably needs to be in data and some sort of reasonable regulation or something where you say, hey, these are the bounds that society has kind of put around this, because when you go outside of this, that's bad.
I think I have solved the gun issue. Guns should just be huge.
Oh. No. Oh, he wants to go back to the muskets where you have to load them and it takes
and I want them to be like powder 7 feet long, and it's illegal to modify them. That would get rid of most of the issues people are trying to get rid of by, aiming at gun control. Just make them huge. Make it illegal to make them small.
You heard it. We have solved.
No more metal detectors.
We're getting close to world peace. We finished the gun issue. We now have to work on world
oversized, and hey, you know what? Neon colored. Because why not?
And they smell really bad or something.
Yeah, like with a skunk cartridge in it or something. Problem solved.
Is there any other remaining topics that we want to hit on?
Can we talk about the lawsuit?
The Rut-Row?
The lawsuit.
Yes. The Rut-Row. It's time for Rut-Row, folks.
This is the Rut-Row of all Rut-Rows. Like, I actually think this Rut-Row is bigger than the Facebook Rut-Row for our industry.
Oh, I don't know.
For our industry, I think it is.
I think it's going to have bigger, more far-reaching ramifications. If it's successful, or just the conversation, it's going
to be successful. I mean, I got to tell you, after reading, so let's post it. Let's say what it is. So there is a class action lawsuit that's been opened up against some of the major brands for their non-competitive practice of not allowing. Or for agreeing to not bid on each other's keywords, but also not allowing OTAs to bid on their keywords.
Right.
Which, by the way,
their affiliates.
Any attorney who reviewed the contract that the brand submitted to the OTA that said in writing that they were restricted from bidding on that attorney did not do a great job of explaining what the potential future ramifications of a term like that in a contract would be.
Okay.
I didn't say we're wrong. I said didn't do a great job of explaining.
Well, no. All those attorneys went through it, and it aligns, I would say, in terms of an agreement between the hotel group with their trademarked, intellectual property, working with an agent, right, and saying you can't, do this particular thing. That's legal, and that's within Facebook. Well, I should say that's legal in the U.S. and generally North America for these companies to do it. I mean, if you look at trademarks in Google's ad policies, they basically say on resellers that, you can't really necessarily use this trademarked name unless you're allowed by that group to do so, right? And the other one is for other guys to use it, the competitors. Facebook says ads referring to the trademark for competitive purposes, right? So Google comes out and says, you can't use it and say, here's Marriott and I'm going to go serve up a Hilton. That's bad. You get knocked down, right? So that part, I think, is going to be a fight, and it's a very complex subject of how you use it. The interesting things, though, I think, were the AHNLA and which it's kind of the RICO stuff, right? Of saying, hey, racketeering, you told them not to do it against each other or something like, that sort of collusion. And I think Catherine Luger at AHNLA, I mean, they've kind of nailed a presentation with her saying, here's what you guys should do and against this. and that horizontal thing is kind of what they're pushing at. That's not good. And they had Dan Lesser, who I went to school with many years ago, and actually I saw his presentation at the Dallas Hotel Conference, where he will say some things where it says raise your rates now. And it was held at a conference sponsored by Gardner & Wynn, which is a prominent large law firm that does a lot of stuff, which should know better to go, hey, you can't say that in your presentation. That didn't happen. So yeah, there's some really kind of not so good things that have popped up in this.
I mean, and I'll be honest, I read the story before reading the filing, and after reading the filing, holy crap, this is an uphill battle.
This
is an uphill battle.
Well, the thing is, everyone that read the story had the same reaction, right? Which is, this is a BS frivolous lawsuit. So the majority of reporting based on the reporting is that this is going nowhere. This is a joke. What an idiot. But like you, Ed, when Robert shared the actual case file with us, and I read through every line of it, I started saying, "Ruh-roh, this could go through." And the more I thought about it, the more I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for the industry if it is successful. Because
it's a horrible thing for the brands.
It's terrible for the big brands,
but I think from an overall industry
independent hotels, this is a phenomenal opportunity because
they were talking about this.
And very good for OTAs. Outrageously
OTAs probably win more than anyone, and that makes you question where did this lady in Virginia
no
just wake up one day, right? And
this is
be the plaintiff.
There's deeper waters in this because the law firm, class action law firm, is based in Seattle, not making any proximity judgments or anything like that whatsoever. But then this individual who was harmed, who raised it, is in Virginia. I think in Virginia or something like that. And it's just, and I tried to look up the person, has like no social media profile, no LinkedIn, nothing. It's like, where the hell did this person come from?
They found,
They found.
They've
been working on it for a while because they've been capturing things since.
Yeah, they have all sorts of shots and a lot.
So this wasn't just we stumbled across this because this person said, hey, I don't like this because I'm harmed because the bidding in Google is constrained. I mean,
and let's be fair, even if they win, the recourse is going to be minimal, right? They might get $1 settlement. They might at most get a couple of $1,000 settlement. It's not about what is given in restitution. No. It's about what this precedent.
It's about forming the law. I mean, so form the law.
Google benefits from this tremendously, and all the OTAs benefit from this most.
And Facebook benefits from it tremendously because they can now get rid of all those
and then independent hotels benefit from it. You know, so who loses are probably consumers because rates might go up, right? With competition, maybe they'll go down. I don't know. But advertising costs.
That was a major part that this harmed consumers because it raised hotel pricing, and I have some real question with some of their logic. They have a few leaps on this, saying when you limit competition, yes, pricing goes up, but you're like, wait, you're limiting competition on bidding for these words, which actually makes the price go down.
But see, here's the thing. Here's where from a macro level, if you look at it. So what will happen? Let's say this gets struck where it's illegal and it's even put that, you know what, in order to stay on the right side of legal, there needs to be fair bidding practice where OTAs are bidding now on these branded keywords. Well, okay, so even if the OTA increases their overall marketing budget by 5%, that still means by having this new collection of keywords that they previously were restricted from, they're going to reallocate their spend to some of these keywords. Well, that reallocation is going to be away from other keywords, which means the effect of the raising of cost of these keywords by having the OTAs now be able to bid on it will actually have a result of shrinking on other keywords.
That's true. No. But the only keywords involved.
They could increase budget.
Yeah, but they're not going to double. But here's the thing: they're not going to double their budget.
Hang on.
If the return's there, which it would,
their inventory is not going to change in a given market. So the amount of demand they need to generate to optimize the amount of revenue that they make off of a single market, that's not changing.
But their market share in that market could change, because now they're in front of people that they weren't necessarily. If I search for a Hilton right now, I'm not exposed to the OTAs and the paid ads, and now I might be, which means they have a better swipe at getting that customer.
Right.
On Hilton or anywhere else.
Right. But the only keywords, though, hang on, real important point. The only keywords, and in the contracts that I've been involved with and looked at, it's only the trademark, right? You cannot use Marriott or Hilton if you want to go bid on luxury boutique.
Sure.
Upper East.
No,
that's all fine. But it's only the actual brand.
Yes,
name.
only the actual keyword, which happens to be in the name of every single one of their hotels, which means in a given market where Marriott and Hilton and who else was listed in this? Hyatt, where they're
Hyatt,
the majority of the inventory.
It's all of them.
Right.
Where
they're the majority of the inventory of a market. So, like, let's talk about like Fairfax, Virginia, that only has one independent
60%.
hotel.
Yeah, they pointed it out, 60%, and they're very big on the size.
So
right?
all the corresponding keywords that people would use, even hotels near the Marriott marquee. That's an illegal keyword, for someone to purchase, for an OTA to purchase. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you're talking about unleashing a large amount of keyword inventory that these OTAs will be able to bid on. Even if the OTAs double their budget, I still think you're going to see an easing on certain keywords, which creates an opportunity.
Maybe.
But I also think it will also be really good for people who maybe aren't completely brand loyal, but are brand trained. So they know that there's a Marriott in this area. So they search for, the Marriott this area, thinking they're going to see other options, and they're not. I think that consumer could be swayed to the independent hotel route. And I think it creates a really big problem for these brands. Like, this is a must win for the brands. If the brands do not win this, this is going to make some of the previous moves they've made to restructure their companies really, really tough moves.
Yeah, and I don't envision a day when the brands are competing, right? Because it's just not profitable as Hilton to bid on a Marriott keyword. It just we've done those experiments with clients where you bid on competitive keywords. It just doesn't work. But if an OTA comes in, that's viable as an advertising strategy, and it's probably going to be effective. But what's going to happen is the Hiltons, the Marriotts, the Wyndhams, the Choices, the Hyatts, they're all going to end up relying more heavily on OTAs, meaning they're going to reduce their profitability, meaning their operating costs are going up, which probably means they're going to have to raise their rates, which is another advantage to the independents who hadn't had these agreements with the OTAs, and who the OTAs have been bidding on the whole time. So I think this is great for the independent hotel area.
But that point flies in the face. That flies in the face of what the attorneys are arguing in the class action.
The mistake these attorneys made was the consumer example of car shopping. That if you search for Ford F-150, you're going to see the Chevy Silverado. If you actually go and test that, Ford and Chevy aren't buying each other's keywords.
They're not. Right.
At all. It's not present at all. So brands,
and that's because in Google they don't allow it. You can't do that.
Right. But I have two pieces of advice for a brand. I think you alter your service marks to have your URL present, and you alter your agreement that at any point you use our service mark in anything, you have to have our URL present within X, like make it part of the trademark. Instantly, you get past the anti-competitive, you make it something that now it's just the OTAs don't want to do it, because in order to use your keyword in a key phrase, they also have to have your URL present. Like that's.
I think there's an issue with the fact that you don't actually own your URL. You can't identify your subfolder in a Marriott or something like that. You're subfoldered out. You can't take Marriott from Marriott.
No, but what I'm saying is even if Marriott makes it that any use of the word Marriott is a requirement that Marriott.com be present and visible, and had like brand, like if they make that part of their trademark, it's just a rewording of this policy can get them the same result that they want. Now,
Marriott would have to do that for every one of them.
It's a massive, expensive undertaking.
Now I've given that piece of advice. Now, if you're an independent hotel, stand up and get behind this.
Yeah,
Stand up and get behind this class action lawsuit because this will be good for independent hotels.
So okay, I'm going to go back to remember the old movies with the clay animation and when the dinosaur was chasing the human, they go into the little cave and then the dinosaur came along and the two dinosaurs were fighting and the little humans ran out. Yeah, that's the independent hotels. Run away while the big dinosaurs are fighting. Yeah. But and we did miss a very key statement that Mr. Ed made that I wrote down in our show notes today. And it is not brand loyal, but brand trained. I think that is a pretty cool statement because that kind of goes back to a few other conversations we've had that that's where brand has missed the mark on this. They are confusing loyalty, membership, and all this other crap with brand training. Right. And it never has been said that way before, but Ed, you said it this way.
Familiarity,
We're not talking about loyalty or membership. We're talking about training. We're training them that when you're traveling somewhere to look for our freaking brand.
Right.
And we're going to give you something for it.
Most people are somewhat lazy. They're somewhat risk adverse. They like what's comfortable. They like what's familiar. That's why they stay at the property they do, and you can retrain that. You can reassure them. You can persuade them. You can manipulate them into trying something new. You have to give them a reason, but it's certainly not loyalty for sure.
Yeah, no, and it's certainly not membership either. There's no member value to that. It's just an acknowledgement of a connection. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. I think membership is important, or some kind of instant gratification rewards to differentiate you. In terms of booking direct versus OTA, something like that. Like Marriott Rewards is effective at persuading someone to book direct with Marriott versus booking the same property on an OTA. There's a financial benefit to that, right? Other properties do it other ways, like free Wi-Fi. Marriott does the same: free Wi-Fi, free parking, free whatever. If you're a member,
by the way, when every rewards program offers the same thing, it's no longer exclusive, and that's why everyone's a member of every rewards program.
Exactly, but I think if we're talking about in the grand scheme of the ecosystem, we're not just competing against the next property; we're also competing against the OTAs, and I think it is an effective tool against why. One model
that I've recently come across that I think is interesting is are any of you guys AMC members for AMC theaters?
Yes. Yep.
So it costs money. It costs money to join this, but man, what they give you in return is fantastic. And it's much better than the other theaters programs that have no upfront cost, but also don't give you near as much. And it does a really good job of actively pointing out to you when you've gotten value and tracking the overall value you've gotten, which makes you want to spend the annual token amount. So, and what I think they've really chimed into is if you're going to go to theaters a lot in a year, and a lot is not even that big. I mean, let's not forget it's I think it takes 4 times to go with your family to get enough value out of it that you paid for. What you put on.
Yeah, you basically get $5. You get $5 back for anything, right? You can use it for tickets. You can use it for concessions every time you spend $50. So it's a very rich, 10%. Yeah,
it's very quick. Paid. It's very quick. Well, you get lots of rewards, and the way they get you, the way they get a lot of people, the way they got me is I was buying movie tickets online for a large group of people. And the fee that I saved on that transaction was more than so it's very Amazon Prime-like, right?
Yep.
But I actually find myself now, they've triggered the same thing Amazon Prime does in me, where when it's time to go and plan going to the movies, I actually think about, can we go to an AMC instead of a Regal? Even though I'm part of Regal's, club too, but their club isn't as good. I actually think about, is there a better? Can we go to AMC instead?
Oh no, we now exclusively go to AMC, but I'm completely evil on this because I got a movie pass, right?
Yeah, I remember you telling us.
Right. So now what happens is I pay $9.99 a month because I didn't want to go to $6.99 a month because I didn't want to prepay a year in advance. That was probably a stupid decision on my part. But for that $9.99, I go in and I buy tickets. So we went on Tuesday, right? When it's normally, at least in the Dallas theaters, it's like $5 a movie. We didn't pay $5. We paid full freight, $15 a ticket for the movie, because it's coming out of MoviePass. So MoviePass is getting hit with it, and AMC is getting the full benefit of that revenue. So it was interesting. They went through, there was a period, December-ish, where AMC started not applying the points to because they're going, oh, no, you used a MoviePass. So they had figured out the credit card thing or something, because that's the only way you could do it, right? There was no other channel. They figured out the range of credit card numbers they were using. So I went back at them kind of hard going, this isn't in your terms and conditions. What the hell are you doing? Where are my points? And I don't think it was just me. I think they finally decided, what the hell? This is good for us. We're getting all this retail business. People are coming to us more. And yes, we're giving out 10%, but probably AMC can outlast MoviePass as long as they don't play with them. It's just like, keep bleeding us, because the analysis I did.
I think, Robert, you don't give yourself enough credit. I think you single-handedly influenced that entire industry just by what you did. I think it was your contribution to that.
Oh yeah, but I'll say, the exposure. I think that interesting dynamic of, can you get someone to cross a hurdle to join your membership? Because I even think about it like, I have an Amex Platinum, and my sole reason for having Amex Platinum is the $200 Uber credit a year, the 10 GoGo wireless sessions a year, which can be used on flights, and the flight credit at whatever airline I choose, $200 there. Plus, it paid for it's for any airline fee.
Right. Yeah, for the airline fee credit. Plus you get access to all the clubs, right?
Right, and all the club access. Yeah. And so I pay $400 a year for that access. Like that, now I think about AMC's application of it. Is there a more interesting play for frequent travelers that could actually drive a closer to loyalty behavior? Because you're not loyal to the brand, you're loyal to the money you gave them. Right, absolutely. You're loyal to your investment.
Deeper connection when there's a transaction.
Transactional relationship.
Right, and so like I'm surprised none of the brands have come up with something to that nature.
Oh, which card are you talking about, Ed? Did you say AMC or Amex?
AMC.
AMC is the theater one, but my Amex Platinum is a credit card. Yeah, and the whole reason I have that credit card over the plastic, I don't know what they call their other cards, but the whole reason I have that card is all the benefits that you get for that money. And I happen to be that sweet spot consumer that reeks out like triple or quadruple the benefit that I'm guessing the average Amex Platinum user does, because I travel a lot. So I do. And I'm Hilton Honors Gold because of Amex Platinum. I'm Marriott, whatever. So you get instant status with like a whole bunch of like rewards programs because of having it. And I never question the investment.
No, I never question Amex Yeah, they want you though, because you also buy gasoline and groceries and all sorts of other things, and they're giving you Amex rewards points, which you can go, gather up and go, oh, I've got 300,000 of these. I think I'll convert them to Delta or whatever the case may be.
Which I actually never do. I never use the points for travel. I always use them to buy things. So like, I've never paid for golf stuff, but I have nice golf clubs and all that. All the tools in my garage I bought with Amex points. Like, it's amazing because ever since they connected to Amazon, like it's almost like every 3 months I get to a point where a purchase on Amazon is completely covered by my Amex points.
It sounds like Ed is sharing these points so nicely with his family and across the family for the golf clubs and the tools.
But it lends itself to one point, and it goes to I did something in version with an independent hotel where we gave the reward value second highest to everybody that came to the hotel from an OTA. We wanted to get them engaged with the hotel and to combat the fact that there was brand coming into their market. And they had a lot of loyal guests that were saying, look, we love being with you, but I like burning some points up or getting some points that I can use with my family trips. So I'm probably going to have to go down to the brand place down the road. And so we did this thing where we're like, you know what? You're going to be our second highest level tier because you're a guest, and especially from an OTA to get them converted over. To keep that, you need to come enough times Okay, so that the next year you get to keep your status. And God knows if you've ever had a status go down, you really realize, gee, I really did enjoy using that status. So it actually gave them the incentive. I mean, we did other things like actually giving cash rewards and so forth. But that value proposition, we always go back to the old adage, you get what you pay for. So if you're getting it for free, how good is it? Amazon Prime is a perfect example. You pay for what you get. The Movie Pass stuff, you pay for what you get. The AMC stuff, you pay for what you get. You will make yourself use those things because you feel there's a value to it, and you get the reward for using it. So, you're right. Hotels should really consider how it is that they're approaching this. We're going to give you a reward system because they're treating it like you're paying for free. You're getting a cheap bottle of water. You're really not getting any recognition. There's a carrot on a stick that you have to show loyalty before you get, or frequency.
Well, and some of these programs, like the carrot on the stick, is so far out.
It's just past the normal usability. It's purposely past the normal usability.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because I watched how it altered my behavior, that AMC program. Which I'll say, it took a situation to get me over the hurdle. I was always like, no, I'm not going to pay for a loyalty program. But then I hit the situation, and now I'm in. Like I'm paying it every year, and love it because I understand it.
Well, and the interesting one that just happened this last weekend was Lyft came out with a subscription. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
$200 for up to 30 rides a month. It capped at $15 per ride. So if you go for a $16 ride, yes, you have to pay $1 sort of thing. Sold out. I mean, my daughter was going to do it and love it because she doesn't have a car there, right? And so that was a good thing. But we waited too long. It closed out fast. Once word got
just wait another 3 months, and Ed should have enough points to get a car for your daughter. Just saying.
There we go. That's right.
Guys, I got to run. I got a 1:30.
The Lambo she has her eye on. Oh man, you are such a kind, generous man.
Hey, before you leave, since we're hitting you right at your dead stop, if people want to know more about you, your amazing podcast, which by the way, the last one was really very, very cool.
That was probably my favorite one we've ever done. We enjoyed it more than any other. We all left at the end of the episode saying that was awesome. It just felt good, when things flow. But yeah, if you haven't listened to the podcast, that's a good one to start on.
Start with that one.
Downhill from there. But one last week, top 10 things you can spend money on to drive direct bookings. And 4 of us came up with our own independent lists and kind of debated where things should fall. So it's interesting. You should go listen to it. You can get it at fueltravel.com/podcast, and it was episode 81. And we're going to record this afternoon. We're recording a episode on GDPR, and we'll put a Fueligan spin on that one. So it'll be a little different tone to this today. Probably alcohol fueled, and we'll try to make it interesting, but we'll probably fail.
Sexy.
So,
and fueltravel.com.
Yeah, fueltravel.com is the website. You can get us anywhere on social media at Fuel Travel. If you want to hit me up with Star Wars questions, you can do it on Twitter as well at Stuart Butler. So.
Oh, and I didn't put in the news item. Disney has laid out their whole schedule of releases for the next 5 years, and I thought I was going to just toss it, but I thought that's all we would talk about. I left that off.
Time for next week's podcast. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Stuart. Have a good weekend.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Bye. All
right. Speaking of Disney, it was strange. So I finally got to see Black Panther. And in the lead up to Black Panther, they were showing kind of like a clip talking about the movie and how it's the 18th Marvel movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. 18 from Iron Man to today. That is insane. Because
I'll post the link.
No. But here's what's insane about how much volume they're pumping out, and I know they're upping it. They're going even further. But if you think about the fact that I'm willing to bet you, prior to Iron Man, there were probably 25 box office level superhero movies ever.
Spider-Man's, Superman's, Batman's,
The Punisher counts. The Vampire Hunter one. What's that one with the guy who doesn't pay his taxes? Wesley Snipes.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know.
Blade.
You know, Blade.
Blade. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, I bet you, like, we're nearing the point where in this time period, there have been more superhero movies of box office level, not like straight to DVD, than there have ever been in history.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Disney is a machine.
Yeah.
And of course,
and
I had to go see Black
lands.
Panther. I had to go see Black Panther because they timed it really brilliantly that you had to go see that movie if you wanted to go see Avengers. You had to go see it in the theater because they kept it in the theater long enough that it will not be at your house before the Avengers movie comes out. So if you didn't see it in the theater, you would miss that movie and its contribution to the Avengers storyline that's coming up in June.
Yeah, very true.
So,
gentlemen, we are at the 2-hour mark. I think Facebook's going to shut us off soon because they have a 2-hour limit on the other one. Yep. Although we're just simulcasting over the end. I ended up turning off Periscope. We had some feedback or some comments in the newsfeed on the Facebook side that we had some audio echoes. So I killed the Periscope.
It's probably for the better.
Well, Periscope, we get a hit and miss with Periscope because sometimes we get a lot of people commenting on it, and then other times zero.
No, I meant it's for the better that no one could hear what we were saying.
Oh, well, actually, there was some great disappointment that they couldn't hear you, Ed. They were like, what? I can't hear Ed. What good is this show if I can't hear Ed? I mean, literally, I'm looking at it.
I agree. Granted, I was the one writing that, but, you know.
Just saying, it's from Ed. Wait a minute.
That's right.
So, gentlemen, if they want to know more about you, Mr. Ed, where can they go find you and what you do?
You can find me on social media by my name, Edward St. Ange. You can find out about FlipTube by going to flip.to.
Most excellent. Mr. Robert Cole, sir, if they want to know more about you.
Robert K. Cole, or you can go to rockcheetah.com.
And for archives of
and
this
Laura,
show.
Where can they find you? Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
My hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live for all links to the current shows of this quarter, as well as archives of all 137 shows that we have done back since summer of, what does that make, 15? Yeah, summer 15 we started. Yeah, good stuff. Gentlemen, thank you as always. Thank you. Sorry we ran out of time with Dan to join. No, actually, Dan apologized. He felt so bad that he totally blew it off. He's like, dude, I'm sorry. And it's like, we'll just reschedule. We'll get you on this show. It's not like you don't have something good to say whenever we get on shows.
Well, you can just email him and tell him the only stuff we talked about was how Outrigger had a new Parsippany location. And that's the only location we would talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
And strategizing all the Hawaiian market and how we had great insights. But, yeah. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you as always. And we will be up for our next show. I will actually be doing it from New York. I might just have to get it started for a bit and then leave it over to your capable hands because I'll be with clients in New York and I'll be flying out that same day. So that'll be show number 138. Wow. So
why don't you just have all of us participate in your client meeting, Lauren?
Yeah,
I think
I would welcome that. I would actually welcome that. I would love for them to hear intelligent dialogue that I have to keep repeating myself on, and then they hear it from other people, and they'd be more respectful of it anyway.
Lauren's trying to lose a client. Are they not paying you enough, or are they just really a problem? They're just too demanding.
If you won't believe me, believe them. All right, gentlemen, with that, thank you so very much. We'll see everyone next Friday, 11:30 Eastern. 10:30 Central for This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing live show number 138. Till then,